I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Jonathan here, along with
Morgan.
And we just watched John Wick 2, which blew our minds.
Yeah, it was very good.
It's unbelievable how well done this movie is. If you've seen the first one and you enjoyed it, you're definitely going to enjoy this one. Spoiler alert, we loved it. Go see it. It's a must-see. At this point, I guess, a must-rent. So we're going to do things a little bit differently. Rather than doing a straight-up discussion like we normally do when there's multiple of us in the booth, we're just going to talk kind of about the technical aspects, the acting, and so it's going to be short and sweet. Well, we say that. We've never talked.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, but we're going to try. Keep it short and sweet. So let's just go right down the list. Start with the acting. What do you think?
I thought the acting was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Keanu Reeves always does a great job. He does a great job playing the brooding revenge assassin. And I think that even just like with his movement in the John Wick movies, he's always like hurt and he's always like hobbling around.
Yeah. And
he plays the injured action hero very, very well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that I think is one thing that really brings personality to these movies, and this one especially, because I mean he's beaten up within the first 5 minutes. He gets his ass kicked and
gets hit by a few cars.
You know, and it doesn't let up, and you know, rather than be this unstoppable force of nature that, you know, takes 10 to the chest and then just keeps going, just, you know, just walks it off. He looks, like you said, beat up. He's hobbling all the time. And it really drives home that this guy really is the man everybody says he is. It's not a joke when everybody says, it's John Wick. Oh. And they get that oh shit look in their face. But he's still a man. He can be killed, and he comes dangerously close in this one. But he does a fantastic job. Ian McShane is just awesome in everything he does. And I love him in American Gods. That's the most recent thing besides this that he's done, to my knowledge. And I think as Mr. Wednesday, he's fantastic. This one, I think, is better. I think the brooding, kind of omniscient, you know, I am the lord of my domain and I don't need to roar to tell you that. I mean, he's in command of every scene he's in.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the other ones, because everybody was really good. The movie really does belong to those two. Special note, I think, and this is going to come up with our one problem with the movie, literally one problem that we came up with, is the mute female assassin, Adrian Padalecki's replacement in this one. She was so awesome. I mean, I think I liked her better than Adrian Padalecki, and I loved her character in the first one. This one, I don't think she's given a name that I...
You know, let me look.
She might be. She might have.
His name is Ruby Rose.
Yes, I think that's and she's just, I mean, just incredibly sexy and laser focused, and does such a good job conveying that, conveying the sexy hostility with just her sign language.
Yeah. She doesn't have a line.
Doesn't have a single line, you know, and the thing is, at no point does it feel like she's there simply as eye candy.
Right.
You know, Adrian Padalecki, you could kind of make the case that she was there as the eye candy of that movie. This one, I mean, she's dressed in a suit the whole time. I mean, a regular suit. I think the only moment where you could say they're sexualizing her and I don't think you're going to catch this unless you've seen it in the theater, maybe, or if you have it on a 4K Blu-ray, like we watched it on. There's a moment where the camera zooms to her pulling a knife out of her pocket from beneath her sport coat, and you can see it's focused on her butt, and you can see the outline of her underwear. And that's, I mean, but it's not accentuated, it's not lingered on. I think it's just kind of, she's wearing pants, and you can sometimes see underwear through a person's pants. It's just the outline. You can just do that. I don't think it was done to sexualize her. And that I really applaud, because she was sexy without ever having to try. So, I mean, anybody else?
No, I think that really covers all the bases.
Yeah. While we're on this one, and it has nothing to do with her acting, we will address the one flaw that we have with this movie, because it's the mute female assassin.
Yeah. She is just built up so much throughout the movie. And then I said to you, whenever John Wick picked out a knife, we're going to get a sweet boss battle knife fight with the mute girl.
Yep.
And we
kind of do.
We did. But it was very one-sided. John Wick kicks her ass and then stabs her.
Yep.
But
spoiler alert, she doesn't die.
Right. We don't know that she's dead.
No.
So maybe in the third one.
Maybe in the third one. I think there's going to be quite a few of them that come back for the third one.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think that's going to be awesome. And so that, I guess that naturally leads into the story and the script. Whereas the first one really is a traditional revenge narrative. Mm-hmm. Colorful, but still a pretty basic story. This one is much more about a job that John Wick is given and the fallout that accompanies that job. And it's very, very well done. And the through line is how a man, once he enters this world, never can leave it. In fact, I got the sense, I don't know if you got this as well, but I got the sense that what happened to precipitate the events of this movie was just a matter of time. Even if he hadn't, quote unquote, gotten back into the game with John Wick Part 1, this precipitating event, this guy from his past coming to him and calling a debt due, would have happened no matter what. And I feel that way too. Yeah. But it was beautifully handled, and the script was very energetic when it needed to be, very funny when it needed to be. Morgan, you were commenting on the world building.
Yeah. Something that I mean, they don't really talk about it in the first one, but there's really just like this league of assassins that they have. Yes. This like society of killers, and there's rules, and there's just like a whole assassin underworld. Mm-hmm. And it's much more upfront in this one than in the first one. But it's just, it helps me buy into the whole assassins exist part of these movies. Yep. And I really enjoyed the way it was done in this one. And it really like sucked me into the world that John Wick is in. And
it was, admittedly, it is over the top. I mean, it's done, the whole movie is over the top. But I thought that really gave it the personality that it needed, the color it needed, the humor that it needed. Because, and I said this right at the end, without those moments of levity, there's a 3.5-minute sequence where he's going shopping in the assassin underworld. Yep. And it's just fantastic. The way they talk, the casualness, especially when he goes to buy his guns. That's just one of the best moments in the movie. And it's so lighthearted and so fun that without those moments, the film would have been so dark and so downbeat that it wouldn't have been fun. It wouldn't have been enjoyable. It still would have been very well done, I'm sure. But this gave it the color to offset the bleakness.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves definitely does dry humor very well.
Yeah.
In this, a lot of the funny moments are just very casual and dry, but they're funny because they are that way.
Yeah.
And their subject matter is like so serious. Like, I'm about to go kill hundreds of people. Look at this cutlery. Look at all these knives that I can kill people with.
There's one scene where one of the rules for this assassin underworld is you do not spill blood and conduct business in the Continental. You do not do that. That's unacceptable. That's grounds for excommunication. Well, Keanu, John Wick, and one of the other assassins are fighting, and they crash through one of the windows into the Continental. And management comes up and says, "Need I remind you about the rules?" And they're like, sorry, I'm sorry. Would you guys like to go have a drink and calm down? And so they go and have a drink. And they talk about how they're going to kill each other the next time they see each other. But it's, it's a dark moment, but it's funny, it's dry, it's so well handled. I know, pretty sure the director of the first one also wrote the script for the first one and the second one. And I hope he continues to write for number 3 because I just can't imagine it with anybody else. I can't imagine anybody else being able to pull off what he did with that blending. So
yeah, it's very much a just like casual, like we don't conduct business in the Continental. And there's even one part where John Wick sees the assassin that he is in this fight with after he has just killed his mark. And he's like, "Are you working tonight?" And John Wick's like, "Yeah." And the other guy's like, "Is it a good night?" And John Wick's like, "Unfortunately, it is."
Yep.
And then they just start fighting.
Yep. And it's beautifully handled. And one more. I mean, we're not. It's a spoiler-laden review. I mean, it's just we're not going to get around.
Yeah.
Another standout moment between these same 2 assassins occurs when they get on a subway car. And it is one of the most tense scenes I've seen since the 3-way standoff in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Because you know what's going to happen. You know they're going to start throwing down and kicking the shit out of each other. But they hold off until they can do it without all these people on the car. And they just keep staring at each other, inching closer. And it's incredibly well done. And it holds that tension just to the point where you're about ready to burst, and then holds it a few beats more, and then it bursts. And it's wonderfully well done.
Yeah.
Cinematography for a let's kill as many people as we can movie. This is unbelievably gorgeous. The first one was a beautifully shot film. It's got nothing on this. Think the nightclub scene in that one for the entire movie.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking about, like so many of the shots in this, like even in the first 15 minutes, we were like, "Oh, that was a beautiful shot." Mm-hmm. And there were just so many clever shots, like clever angles and clever camera angles and clever like setups for things happening. And it was just so satisfying.
Yeah. And it was the total package, the framing of the shots, the use of light, the symmetry of so many of the shots. There's shots where they're filming through doorways and it's perfectly framed within a frame, and 2 paintings on the wall on either side, and it's perfectly symmetrical. And then there are shots in the catacombs of Rome under the city where it's dark and dingy, and it looks dark and dingy, except for the very bright lights on the ends of their guns as they look for him, and those bursts of light in the frame. It's just gorgeously filmed, and we also noticed afterwards that Rome and New York, which is where most of the story is set, have two very distinctive looks. Rome really is played up as a city of ruins and stone, lots of natural colors, very vibrantly lit, but still very naturalistic and very beautiful in its own right. And then you get to New York, which you said was really more neon lit and much more vibrant, but in a different way. And I thought that was really, really cool, really well done.
Yeah, I agree completely. All of the shots in Rome were just like so. There was so much stone, and like you said, like the catacombs and ruins, and it was so like natural. And then Manhattan is just so like busy and bright, and there are people like everywhere. And like there are even a few shots at night where like it's nighttime, but there are just so many people there regardless of what time it is.
Music, I guess if there was a weakness, you could probably call it this, to me at least. Not that it was a bad score, not that the songs were bad. I'm honestly probably going to get the soundtrack because I'd like to listen to it again. But it didn't stand out for me.
It didn't step up and show itself really.
Yeah.
Like there were a few moments where it helped tighten the tension. But
the subway scene.
Yeah, but there weren't a lot of scenes where the music was like, I'm here. Notice me.
You know, and I think that you know, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing or just irrelevant, I do think that's kind of a trend, and I think we have Hans Zimmer to blame for that. Honestly, I think Batman Begins really did start us down this path of having a much more ambient score that fades into the background, which admittedly is what film scores were always originally intended to do. They're supporting what's on the screen, but not overriding it. The way, for example, Social Network. Without that soundtrack, it's a different movie. Believe me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so I'm not saying it's a bad score. Like I said, I'm probably going to buy the score and put it in my car and listen to it. It's just not, like you said, it doesn't step up and introduce itself. So, anything else?
I don't think so. Oh, so one thing I did want to talk about was, I guess you would call it the choreography of the fight scenes.
Yeah.
It's something that you mentioned, sort of combined with the cinematography, is that there aren't just a bunch of jump cuts in the fight scenes.
Yes.
It's like a frame and like somebody gets hit like 3 or 4 times and then there's a cut. It's not just like a punch from 7 different angles. Right. And throughout the movie, that's something that I just really enjoyed, was how like messy the fight scenes were, which just makes it seem so much more real. Like there are times when like Keanu Reeves like has a hold of a guy but gets punched by somebody. Like he's not just, I mean, he is just like killing everyone.
Oh yeah.
But he's not doing it in the most efficient way humanly possible.
Yeah, I mean there's one scene where he's going through and he doesn't waste a single bullet. It's, a shot to the chest, a shot to the head. Every single time, every single bad guy goes with 2 shots. And that goes on for a little while, and then he has to reload, and all of a sudden things get messy because suddenly he's off his plan. Things are not working exactly the way he wanted them to or the way he planned. Things change, and it, like you said, gets messy. I think that's a good way of doing it. Saying it. Towards the end, he's grappling with one guy, and he starts to get a hold of the guy, starts to get on top of the guy and ready to finish him off, somebody else starts shooting down at him, and so he's struggling to kill the guy above him, who's got a better angle, and kill the guy beneath him, who is struggling to get a gun. And it's very well done. And I go back to Quantum of Solace as the worst example that I can think of for rapid cuts, especially that early car chase scene where you can't tell what the hell's going on half the time because it's edited so fast. This movie, you see John Wick shoot or hit 3 or 4 guys per cut, and it's frequently very slow in that, he'll shoot one guy, then he'll turn, shoot another guy comes from behind, they struggle, gets him on the ground, shoots him, and then we cut. And, you might have, guys who live and die in a single cut. And I think that's really, really cool. And I think it's, given the response that people have had to both movies, I think that's, filmmakers need to take notice of that. I think filmgoers really respond to that. I don't know if you've seen Spider-Man Homecoming.
I have, yeah.
But, if you've heard my review, I didn't like it at all. And hell, a lot of you have seen that review. Let me tell you, it's my most popular review ever. And one thing, and I'm not sure I mentioned it in the review, is that especially at the end, the editing is so fast, you can't really tell exactly what happened. You know that somebody got hit, you know that something crashed into the plane, but you're really not clear on what, and it's partly because of the editing. And I think if you had taken this kind of editing and put it in Spider-Man, it would have changed that movie significantly. It might have made it a better movie. I don't know. It had other problems. But
yeah.
Did you like Spider-Man?
I did.
Ah, damn it.
It's okay. I know what you didn't like about it, and I also wasn't a big fan of that, but I think I tolerated it more than you did. So.
Yeah. A lot of people liked it. I'm not gonna lie. John Wick Chapter 2 is better though.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right. Anything else that long story short, I don't even think we need to rate this. It's a must see. Must rent at this point. If you have the opportunity, if you've got a 4K TV, watch this in 4K HDR.
Yeah.
One thing, I haven't seen it prior to tonight. I had not watched it, and I had not, seen much more other than the trailer for it. I did watch a review or read a review that had screen captures from the Blu-ray release, and one of the captures that I saw was of a scene where a woman is bleeding in a pool of water, and it was a 1080p capture, and seeing it just looked like she was in dark water. And seeing it on a 4K HDR TV, it was a beautiful tapered crimson scarlet.
Yeah.
It was a gorgeous, with a film like this, you need to watch it with that kind of grading. This is one of those films where it's totally worth the price of admission to see it 4K HDR. So
yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah. That shot is one we hadn't talked about up until now, but it's one of those that happened and we were like, okay.
Yeah. and the filmmakers, and you're looking at it, and the filmmaker doesn't exactly linger, but it's a longer shot than you would normally have, of essentially a static scene, and it's just gorgeous. I mean, it's masterfully composed, beautifully lit, and the color grading is just the icing on the cake, So yeah, John Wick, must see. If you haven't, go out and buy it. All right, don't rent it. Buy this movie because I want a third one, and I want to make sure that they do the third one. Not simply a prequel TV series, which I understand they're doing. I want to see a proper capstone to the trilogy. Maybe it's not as good as this one. I'm willing to risk it. And this, by the way, is probably, it's in the pantheon of best sequels ever.
This is how you do a sequel.
Yeah. I mean, completely eclipsed everything that the first one does right in every area. It's, and we're expecting the big knockdown, drag him out knife fight with mute assassin girl in the third one. So watch for that. So this has been Jonathan.
Morgan.
For Pomegranate Radio. Thanks for listening and watching. We'll catch you next time. Oh, and hi, Will.
Pomegranate.